Hello everyone. Today we're going to conclude our thing with the product rule. So this is the last day we're going to use it, but we're going to talk about it and it's going to come up in later lessons. So we're not going to completely forget about it, but this is the last day we're focused solely on this. Here's your warm-up. Take it, a pause, and when you're ready, unpause and we'll go over the question. Make sure you're taking this in your notebook because you will be submitting your notes as well as your classwork today. So what is the value of n in the equation 5 to the 5th times 5 to the n equals 5 to the 12th? So we know a couple things. We know, one, we're multiplying. 2, there's the same base. And if these both are true, then we can add the exponents. Right? So when we really look at this problem, 5 to the 5th times 5 to the n equals 5 to the 12th, let's really look at that one side, right? We know we can add those two. What I mean by those two is I mean the 5 and the n. So 5 plus n equals 12. I got the 12 because of the result. So if that's the case, we just subtract 5 from 12, then we get n equals 7. Excellent. Let's go to the next. Here's just a little review. So let's take a look at that top part. 2 to the 4th times 2 to the 3rd. We started off by doing this in expanded form. So 2 to the 4th in expanded form is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. And then 2 to the 3rd in expanded form is 2 times 2 times 2. And what we did was we counted the number of 2's that are being multiplied. And in this case, it's 7, and we're left with 2 to the 7th. That led us to our product rule. X to the a times x to the b gives us x to the a plus b, right? When we are multiplying with the same base, we add the exponents. I want you to pause the video, take a few moments to do numbers 1 through 6. When you're ready, unpause, and we'll go through them together. All right, let's take a look. So for number 1, we got 4 to the 11th, because 5 plus 6 is 11. Number 2, we have 8 to the 4th, because 0 plus 4 is 4. Here we have 7 to the 7th. Remember, there is an invisible 1 above that 7, so that has to count. You need to include that. Number 4, x to the 93, because 3 plus 90 equals 93. Here we have negative 5 in parentheses, remember. 2 plus 8, which is negative 5 to the 10th. And lastly, we have a to the 5th, because a to the 2 plus 3 is a to the 5th. Awesome. Let's take a look at this problem. I want you to pause the video and answer the question as best you can. When you're ready, unpause it. Okay, so here we are identifying the mistake and explain why it is wrong. We use these cards in our Desmos activity, and these were the most commonly wrong answers. So let's take a look at why these are wrong. So that first one, both of these are not correct. We know 5 squared times 2 to the 5th does not equal 10 to the 7th because you cannot simplify, or you cannot use the product rule when the bases are not the same. Let's take a look at the second group. One of these does not belong, and it is the 3x. X to the 3rd does equal x times x times x. But 3 times x, 3x means 3 times x. Not x times x times x. Really, 3x came from x plus x plus x, right? That's where that's coming from. Also, x to the 3rd does not equal 3x because we don't multiply the base with the exponent. take a look at the next group. That middle one does not belong. Negative 3 to the 7th is not the same as negative 3 in parentheses to the 7th. If you look back at your notes, we discussed this. Negative 3 to the 7th is actually negative 1 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. Negative 3 all in parentheses to the 7th is actually negative 3 times 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 negative 3. That's the difference. So negative 3 to the 7th without parentheses does not belong. And that actually leads us into our final one. That last card, negative z to the 4th without parentheses, does not equal the others because they're not equivalent, right? There's no parentheses there for the same exact reason. Let's move on. We're going to be doing something a little bit new. So we're going to be simplifying 2 to the x squared y to the 3rd times 3 to the x y to the 5th. So we're going to simplify this. Now, I know some of this has been brought up in the Desmos, but it should not freak you out too much. Does anybody have any ideas? Think about it. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually rewrite this just a little differently. All of this is multiplication. 2x squared y to the 3rd is the same thing as 2 times x cubed times y to the 3. We just don't show that multiplication sign. Same thing with the second term. 3 times x times y to the 5th. Now I can clearly see it's all multiplication, and we're going to use the commutative property to rearrange some of this stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to rearrange using our knowledge of like terms. So 2 and 3 are whole numbers, so we're going to move them over here. Next we have x to the 3rd and x, and we're going to move them here. Lastly, we have the y's, and we're going to move them here. Again, we're allowed to do this because of the commutative property of multiplication. When we multiply or add, we can move around the terms and it will not change the value. So now we can evaluate. 2 times 3 is 6. They're just whole numbers. Yeah, they're not the same base, but remember, their exponents are just 1. We've done this before. We've done 2 times 3 so many times, so we're not going to change that. 2 times 3 is 6. Then we have x cubed times x, which is x to the 4th, because 3 plus 1 is 4. And lastly, we have y to the 3rd times y to the 5th, which is y to the 8th, because 3 plus 5 is 8. Now we can just kind of squish this back together and have 6x to the 4th, y to the 8th as our final answer. So, really, what we're looking at is we're just kind of multiplying the coefficients, multiplying our like terms, and using the product rule. There have been students that are able to go from the first all the way to the last answer without the middle steps. Now, you can skip those steps if you want, but if you feel not confident enough to do that, break it apart. When in doubt, spread it out and simplify. Again, essentially what you're doing is you're multiplying the coefficients. Then you're multiplying the like terms. So in this case are the x's, and lastly the y's. Today, for your classwork, you're going to do the following 10 questions. There is 1 edit on the sheet. 8 answers don't match up, so you're just going to simplify. So please ignore Mr. Fava's common typos. Get rid of the answers to number 8 and just simplify. Okay? You're going to be submitting this on Loose Leaf. And what I mean by that is you're going to submit it on Google Classroom. So please scan your work, submit, and turn in. Right? And I'll see you all tomorrow. Have a good day.